Hi everyone, I wanted to try to make a video because there was something really important that was brought to my attention the other day. I've had this tab up since yesterday, but there was a video that was made by Mr. MBB333, and in this video he's talking about a mysterious line that was spotted by ISS, and it was also depicted by Google Earth that seems to show a dividing line in the earth. And I think this is really important because I've talked about how I believe when the Mount of Olives splits, that I believe that's when the entire earth is going to split. There's scriptures that talk about the earth splitting as well as the sky splitting, and I've mentioned before how I believe everything is going to be rent in twain, just like the veil of the temple was rent in twain when Jesus died on the cross, but this time heaven and earth, everything is going to be split apart. And here's some scriptures that talk about what's going to happen in the earth, and it's interesting that this one came up in Isaiah 13:13, so that almost shows the division right there just with the numbers. But in this scripture it says, "Therefore I will make the heavens tremble, and the earth will be shaken from its place at the fear of the Lord of hosts in the day of his burning anger." And there's some other parallel scriptures over here, but you can see this one over here in Isaiah 24:19. It says the earth is broken asunder. So it talks about the earth splitting apart. It says the earth is split through. The earth is shaken violently. So when this shaking takes place, this talked about over here in Isaiah 13:13, that's when the earth is actually going to split apart. And the heavens are also going to be split apart when you look at Revelation 6, and it talks about heaven being departed as a scroll. It says, "The sky receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved from its place." The word in the Greek actually means that it was split apart. Okay, and I'll go ahead and show you that in the Blue Letter Bible. It says, "And heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved from their places." And if you look at the word departed over here, it's in the Greek, it's the word apohorizo, and this word means to divide. Horizo means to divide. I'll just show you that over here. You can see it means to separate, divide, part, asunder, and it also means divorce, which is very interesting, but you can see that it means to separate, sever, part, asunder. So the earth is going to be parted asunder, and the heavens are going to be parted asunder, because it talks about the heavens here in Revelation 6. And it's interesting that it comes up in verse 14, because it's in Zechariah 14 that it talks about the earth splitting. It was on Nisan 14 when the veil of the temple was rent in twain. It was in Exodus 14 when the Red Sea was parted. So I believe this number 14 over here represents the separation, but I believe it also represents the transformation of the 144,000. That's why that's recorded in Revelation 14. Because it's all about the DNA, as I've mentioned before, and it represents the division that's going to take place within each of us as well. When this renting takes place, it began with the renting of the veil when Jesus died on the cross, and the veil of the temple was rent in twain, and then this opened up the way into the most holy place. But then this will be fulfilled when Jesus comes back, when the transformation takes place. And so I just want to thank So Ready to Go Home for bringing this to my attention, and I want to thank her for everything that she's shared. And there's something else that's really important that she shared, and that's this over here. And this is really amazing to me. It's incredible, the depth of God and what He's representing with the Mount of Olives. I had no idea, but so ready to go home informed me that there's actually two structures in the brain that are called olivary bodies that look like olives as well. And so I'll just show you this image up close. Okay, so you can see them right here, over here where it says olive. There's one on this side and one on the other side, and then they're separated in the middle. And this is in a part of the brain called the medulla oblongata. And what's really amazing, even more amazing to me, is that this also forms a pyramid. You can see the word pyramid right here. So this is an exact representation of what's going to take place with the Mount of Olives, because I've talked about before how Jesus is the head of the corner, which means the top angle. And so that implies a pyramidal shape, because you can't have the top piece be an angle or a corner unless it's shaped like a triangle. Okay, and so this is what's talked about in Luke 20:17 and 1 Peter 2:7, which I believe represent the year 2017. And then you see it mentioned again in Acts 4:11, and it's in Zechariah 4:11 that it talks about the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks. And of course it's in Revelation 11:4 that it talks about the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks. But just to show you the term head of the corner and how this refers to an angle, you can see that over here it says the stone which the builders rejected, the same has become the head. This word means head. And it's interesting that this is Strong's number 2776, and the height of the pyramid of Giza is 5,776 inches, or the estimated height with the capstone is 5,776 inches. And so you have the word head, and that's Strong's number 2776. It's also used 76 times, so I don't believe that was by accident either. So that would match up with the Hebrew year 5776, which I believe is what the Sphinx was pointing to. I believe it was pointing to this particular year for the headstone. And then I believe that's when the sign was given. I believe that's when Esther's year of preparation began, and there's been some videos that have been done by Leland Jones where he talks about that as well. But I also talked about how I believe that there was a sign in the heavens with the conjunction with Venus and Jupiter that was right in the location by Virgo's head, and this was right under the constellation Coma Berenices, which I believe represents the capstone. And so I believe this sign was given in the Hebrew year 5776. And then if you look at the word corner, you can see that this word means angle. And it's interesting that it's Strong's number 1137, because I believe the number 11 represents DNA, and then the 37 could possibly represent the Hebrew year 5777, because that would be 3 sevens. And so 37 is another way of representing the Hebrew year. But as you can see, it means external, angle, or corner. And it's interesting that it also means secret place. So this goes right back to the brain over here, because this is right by where I'm not sure exactly where the pineal gland is located, but it's somewhere in this vicinity where the medulla oblongata is located. And there's some interesting videos that were done by Enter the Stars where he shows how the other side of this, if you flip this over, it actually looks like the crucifixion. But there was something really exciting that I wanted to point out that I noticed because of all of this, that I think proves that the rapture is going to take place when the Mount of Olives splits. Because I was thinking about the fact that there's two hemispheres in the earth. Well, there's actually a northern and southern hemisphere, but there's also an eastern and western hemisphere in the earth. And I was thinking about the scripture in Zechariah 14, because it says, "And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it toward the south." And so this is something that always perplexed me, because it almost sounds like it's going to split four ways, that it's going to split east and west, and then north and south. And so I was looking at this scripture, and what I discovered is that this actually confirms the rapture, because if you look at the part where it's talking about splitting north and south, you see that this word, it says that it shall remove. So this word over here in the Hebrew actually means to depart. It says it'll depart, remove, be removed. Okay, so half of the mountain is going to be removed or taken away. As you can see, if you go back to the definition, you can see it also means to take away. So half of the mountain is going to be taken away towards the north, and the word north means, if you look at this word, and it's interesting, it's coming up in 6828. Of course, this is the year 2018, and 50 years ago was 1968. But the word north means properly hidden, and so it's an obscure place, a hidden or obscure place. So half of the Mount of Olives is going to depart towards an obscure place. Over here it's talking about the northern heavens, and half of it towards the south. And the word for south is this word Negev, which is south country, the region of southern Judah. And so half of it is going to move towards the north, which would be in the heavens, and then half of it towards the south, which would be the actual territory of Judah. And so this confirms what Natan said in his testimony, because he said that the redemption was going to take place at the Mount of Olives, but that the war was going to take place there as well. And this is something I had understood years ago, because when I was looking into the word stand for the abomination of desolation, you can see it here in Matthew 24:15. It says, "When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand." And so I was trying to understand what was meant by the word standing. And that's when I noticed that this particular form of the word stand is only used in these two places, in Matthew 24:15 and Revelation 14, when Jesus is standing on Mount Zion with 144,000. And so I realized that these are both going to take place at the same time, while the Antichrist is standing in the holy place, which would be the location of the Mount of Olives, the earthly Jerusalem. Jesus will be standing in the heavenly Jerusalem with the 144,000.